Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be answering the question, what is a ditransitive verb? A ditransitive verb is an action verb, but it has a direct object and an indirect object in the sentence. Let me give you an example. The family gave their children £10 a week. So the action verb in the sentence is gave. The direct object is the specific amount of money they gave their children each week. The indirect object in the sentence is the children themselves. Let's take our next example. His dad promised him a birthday party. The verb in the sentence is promised, and the direct object is the birthday party. And as for the indirect object, well, that's him, whoever that is. So the direct object is the specific receiver of whatever the action is in the sentence, and the indirect object is the subject or who else is involved with regards to the action, dependent on what is happening on and in the sentences. So, spot the verb in each of the sentences as I list them. Your job is to identify if the verb is ditransitive, transitive, or intransitive. If it's ditransitive, you must remember to identify the verb, the direct object, and the indirect object. If it's transitive, you need to identify the verb and the direct object. And if it's intransitive, the verb will do. Hit pause if you need thinking time. So, what did you find and how did you get on? Well done if you realised sentence number 1 was transitive. Benny argued with the inspector. The inspector was the direct receiver of the arguing that Benny had with him. Salma focused that evening. Her focusing only affected Salma. That is an intransitive verb. No one receives anything from the action except the subject of the sentence. Jaden handed his mother the phone. This is a transitive verb traditionally, but you'll notice something. There's a direct object, the phone, but the indirect object of this sentence is his mother. Jaden handed his mother the phone. The big action was the handing over of the phone, but who else was involved? His mum. And finally, they sent me a birthday card. If you send someone something, that's the action of the sentence. But in this sentence, the indirect object is me, and the birthday card is the direct response of the verb of the sentence. They sent me a specific thing, a birthday card. The fact that I'm involved is indirect, but it's involving me, hence why it's an indirect object. The ditransitive verb is sent, the direct object is birthday card, and I, or me, is involved. Now it's your turn. For each of the 5 sentences, I want you to identify if the verb is ditransitive, intransitive, or transitive, and label the other key parts of the sentence that prove to you the verb is any of these 3. Hit pause if you need thinking time. So, we listened carefully. We listened carefully. The only people who benefited or received anything from listening were us. Therefore, it's intransitive because nobody else or anything else is affected by listening. When we look at the next sentence, Samaya left her home to travel to America. The verb is clearly left. We get more information though. She left to go to America. That is the direct object of the sentence. The fact though, we are giving more information in this sentence when we say she left her home. We understand that the indirect object here is that she left her home to go to America. Therefore, this sentence has a direct object, an indirect object, and a verb. The verb must be ditransitive. In the next sentence, they stood for the head teacher as she walked in. They stood. Now this verb has a direct object, and that direct object is the head teacher. As they walk in, everyone respects her. Therefore, the verb stood is a transitive verb because they stand for the head teacher. We told the children a story. The verb is clearly told. But that action links to the story. They told a story. The direct object is the story. But the natural question for us is, who did they tell the story to? Well, we are told it is the children they are told the story. So the ditransitive nature of the verb told is clear because the direct object of telling is the story, and the indirect people who benefit from hearing the story are the children. We have both the direct object and the indirect object to match the verb in this sentence. So that makes the verb ditransitive. Finally, I laughed in my mind. I laughed, but nobody else could hear it. So in this instance, nobody is impacted by the laugh. That makes the verb intransitive. Whether we realise what makes a verb transitive, intransitive, or ditransitive, each of these verbs give us clues about whether someone or something is directly impacted by the verb or action of the sentence, or in some shape or way or form indirectly impacted by what the action is of the sentence. The power for us is knowing the difference and being able to identify which type of verb is operating where in a sentence. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?